Alright, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praises and glory unto the Heavenly Father and His only begotten Son, Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Rakha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of the great millstone who rule well. Peace and salutation to the hopeful elect. This is your brother Ahmad Bayan, coming to you with another video through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Rakha Kodash. Now I just want to show you a video here. Alright, based on this, the unthinkable deal the US just offered China and Venezuela, right? But before we get to that, let me just bring out two scriptures and we're going to get it. Alright, and Lord willing, this lesson here is going to be edifying to the elect of Israel. This is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 51 and verse 7. It says, Babylon has been a golden cup in the Lord's hand, that made all the earth drunken. The nations have drunken of her wine, therefore the nations are mad. Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. Howl for her, take balm for her pain. If so, she may be healed. And we know balm is something that, you take for pain, right? In other words, Babylon the Great, aka America, is in a lot of debts, right? And they are basically ready to bring forth the digital system, right? Because their paper dollar is already crashed. They don't want to let no one knows that. Alright? They're basically hiding it from the public. But really and truly, they are done. Alright? They are done. So all the paper that they keep printing with the printing machine, it have nothing that could back up that money. Right? That is not really real money. Real money is gold and silver. Right? And that is what these devils don't have. Right? It says Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. Howl for her, take balm for her pain. If so, she may be healed. We would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. Forsake her and let us go everyone into his own country, for her judgment reacheth unto heaven, and is lifted up even to the skies. Right? Esau is about to get down. He's about to come down from that pedestal that he's in. This is Obadiah 1 and verse 1. It says, the vision of Obadiah, thus saith the Lord power concerning Edom. Edom is who? The so-called white man today. Alright, the Edomites. We have heard a rumor from the Lord Yahweh. An ambassador is sent among the heathen. Arise ye, and let us rise up against her in battle. Behold, I have made thee small among the heathen. Thou art greatly despised. Because no one likes America anymore. The pride of thy heart has deceived thee. Because we know Esau is a very prideful man. And they have Donald Trump. Alright? That prideful man, beating his chest, puffing at his enemies. That cruel lord. That is what Trump is right now. He's being that cruel lord, right? But guess what? They have nothing to back up their money. That's why they want to attack Venezuela to get the oil, It says, the pride of thy heart has deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? Though thou exalt thyself as an as the eagle, and thou and though thou set thy nest among the stars, hence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord Yahweh. If thieves came to thee, if robbers by night, how art thou cut off? Could they not have stolen till they had enough? If grape gatherers came to thee, would they not leave some grapes? And this is how Esau does steal. He takes everything from you, right? And he always look, he always want. Verse 6. How are the things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things sought up? This is Jeremiah 49 and verse 10. It says, But I have made Esau bare, I have uncovered his secret places, and he shall not be able to hide himself. His seed is spoiled, and his brethren and his neighbors, and he is not. So with that, we're going to come to this video here now. And Lord willing, this lesson here was edifying to the elect of Israel. I'm going to leave you all with this video. Listen up.
There's a very old saying in geopolitics: you can be an empire or you can be a debtor, but you cannot be both. For 80 years, the United States defied this rule. They printed the money and the world accepted it. They sanctioned their enemies and the world obeyed. They were the masters of the universe, but this week, the master had to go begging. In Caracas, the United States is doing the unthinkable. After years of trying to destroy Nicolas Maduro, after seizing his planes, freezing his accounts, and putting a $15 million bounty on his head, Washington is suddenly desperate to make a deal. Why? Because the petrodollar is dying, and they need Venezuela's oil to save it. And in Washington, the new Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, is facing a nightmare. He needs to borrow $3 trillion this year just to keep the lights on, but his usual customers aren't buying. So he is forced to look across the ocean to the very country the U.S. calls its greatest enemy, China. Do you see the irony? The United States is currently waging an economic war against the two countries that it needs the most. I worked at the IMF for many years. I have seen this pattern before. When a superpower starts begging its enemies for resources, it is not a 4D chess move. It is a liquidation sale. Today we are going to look at the two desperate deals happening behind closed doors: the oil deal in Venezuela and the debt deal with China. Because if either of these deals fails, the American economy does not just recession, it stops. Let us start with the humiliation in Caracas. If you want to understand how weak the American empire has become, you do not need to look at the GDP numbers. You just need to look at who they are shaking hands with. 5 years ago, the United States declared that Nicolas Maduro was not the president of Venezuela. They recognized a man named Juan Guaido. They froze Venezuela's bank accounts. They seized their airplanes. They even put a $15 million bounty on Maduro's head like he was a cowboy outlaw in a Western movie. The goal was simple: collapse the Venezuelan economy, force a regime change, and take control of the world's largest oil reserves. So, what happened? Maduro is still there, but the American oil strategy is dead. You see, the United States made a catastrophic miscalculation. They assumed that if they sanctioned Venezuelan oil, the world would stop buying it. But the world is hungry. China continued to buy. India continued to buy. And here is the detail that keeps the U.S. Treasury awake at night. They did not pay in dollars. Venezuela became the first laboratory for a post-dollar oil market. They started selling their oil for Chinese yuan and increasingly for USDT crypto. By sanctioning them, the U.S. forced Venezuela to build a financial immune system. They proved to the world that you can sell oil without Washington's permission. And now the tables have turned. While the U.S. has plenty of oil in Texas, it is the wrong kind of oil. It is light sweet crude. But the massive American refineries in the Gulf Coast, they were built 50 years ago to process heavy sour crude. Without that heavy oil, the refineries choke. They cannot produce enough diesel. And if diesel runs out, the American supply chain stops. So we see the unthinkable. American diplomats are quietly going back to Caracas. They are issuing waivers to companies like Chevron to pump oil in Venezuela again. They are offering debt relief. They are essentially begging the man they tried to overthrow to please turn the pumps back on. This is not diplomacy, this is surrender. It proves that when push comes to shove, the United States needs the Global South's resources more than the Global South needs the United States' permission. But if the situation in Venezuela is embarrassing, the situation in Washington is absolutely terrifying. While the diplomats are begging for oil, the Treasury is begging for cash. This is where the new Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, finds himself in a trap. The American public thinks the Treasury Secretary's job is to manage the economy. It is not. His job is to be a salesman. Every single year, the US government spends trillions more than it taxes. To fill that giant hole, they have to sell paper, US Treasury bonds. For decades, this was the easiest job in the world. The entire planet lined up to buy American debt because it was considered risk-free. But this year, the math has broken. The United States needs to sell $3 trillion in new debt just to survive the next 12 months. And the question Mr. Bessent has to answer is, who is going to buy it? He looks at Japan, traditionally the biggest buyer. But Japan is in a currency crisis. They are not buying American debt. They are selling it to save their own yen. He looks at Europe. They are stagnant, fighting their own recession. He looks at the American banks. They are already stuffed full of government paper, sitting on unrealized losses. There is only one buyer left on the planet with deep enough pockets to bail out the United States, China. And this is the absolute comedy of the American position. On one hand, you have the politicians screaming about a trade war. You have threats of 60% tariffs. You have generals talking about conflict in the Pacific. But quietly behind closed doors,